iron horse. What American does not thrill to the sight of a speeding train? The biggest thing that moves on the steam locomotive can hardly be overestimated. In peace and war, it ties our far-flung country together, both for our commerce and industries to function. It brings us our daily food from quarters of the land and carries us on business and pleasure safely and in comfort.
In the early mining towns that grew around such seams of coal, the puffing steam engine sending up its plume of black smoke was a common sight. But today's coal trains are being hauled more and more by the new modern diesel engine. Clean and powerful, these engines pull long trains in and out of mining towns on...
Between the years of 1863 and 1869, the first transcontinental railroad was built. Two competing companies, the Central Pacific Railroad and the Union Pacific Railroad, worked feverishly to lay down more track than the other in order to obtain the most benefits from the government. But where did this giant project come from? Who even thought about laying down thousands of miles of track to connect the new country's coasts? There was a man, Theodore Judah. The Transcontinental Railroad was his brainchild. He was a practical dreamer from Connecticut who had a dream that a man could ride a train from New York to California in a matter of days. Soon after the Pacific Railroad Act of 1862, the Central Pacific Railroad and the Union Pacific Railroad began a most amazing race to see who could lay the most track. The reason they were racing was because the government had agreed to provide benefits for the railroad companies. The Central Pacific Company had a force of Chinese immigrant workers. Although thought to be too fragile and small, the Chinese proved themselves by lowering themselves in baskets over cliff sides to plant explosives. These explosives were used to carve a place for track to be laid through the Sierra Nevada mountains. As the Union Pacific Railroad hit Indian Territory, Native Americans viewed the railroad as a noisy violation of their treaties with the United States. Native American war parties lost no time in raiding labor camps working on laying track. Finally, after 6 years of hard labor, revolutionary technology, and dedication, the Central Pacific Railroad and the Union Pacific Railroad met at Promontory Summit, Utah. On May 10, 1869, Lee Stanford drove the last spike, completing the Transcontinental Railroad. This was one of the first mass media events ever in United States history. A telegraph man relayed the entire event to the rest of the country. When the final spike was hit, the man sent a single word: free country. Done.
It's the Roaring '20s, and Hilliard, Washington is the bustling economic center of the inland Northwest. Tough, proud, and independent. Spokane's richest neighborhood is thriving and alive. A picture-perfect vision of commerce and community. Today, the picture is far from perfect. Hilliard lost its lifeblood, its industry. In the 60s, the rail yard closed. Shortly after, the magnesium plant. And in 1999, the Kaiser smelter shut down. Businesses gone. And with them, experienced workers. What was once Spokane's richest neighborhood is now one of Washington's poorest.
This community is opening a new chapter in where they're going. They are working with the City of Spokane's Planning and Services Department to embark on neighborhood planning, and this means that this work that we've done before now lays the groundwork for future plans.
Coal trains from traveling across the Northwest.
Known for its coal mining.
Coal-carrying trains passing
and Wyoming are loaded with coal, and rapidly growing countries in Asia need it to make electricity. The bad news, in order to ship the coal off the West Coast, all of it has to pass through Spokane on trains. Estimates on just how many more coal trains will be coming through the area vary from 20 to 80. Critics claim the uncovered cars can release clouds of coal dust when they're speeding down the tracks, and right now it's hard to imagine that Spokane could handle any more train traffic. It took 12 minutes for this train to pass the crossing at Trenton Park, and then it just stopped, blocking the intersection for another 8 minutes. Regular commuters through the area say the problem is only getting worse. Spokane is building more overpasses to ease car versus train congestion, but city officials think if the railroad is going to make more money hauling coal, then the railroad needs.
Health issues, traffic issues, potential derailments. A lot of the trains in Sandpoint will be along the lake. Emergency vehicle response times.
It's because it means thousands of jobs in Northwest Washington, in Oregon. It means millions of dollars in tax revenue, and it means continuing a long-standing commitment that we have to being a trade-based state in a region that really believes in trade and the economy.
Well, what's going to happen in 50 years from now, I was asked. We don't know. Maybe the trains would be remote controlled, but there'd be somebody somewhere running that train, whether it be in Fort Wright or Omaha, that would determine how fast it's going, what siding it's going to take, where it's going to stop. And if there was a problem, they'd have to have all kinds of sensors to be able to say that there's a problem, we need to stop that train as soon as we can. Perhaps there'd have to be a human factor involved in this where the engineer is along for the ride in case communications failed and the system didn't work properly. There'd be somebody there that could shut it down in time.
There's a long black train coming down